Appreciate the opportunity. I live over on the west side of Wichita, or southwest side of Wichita. I'm married, and me and my wife have 4 children, from 12 to 5 to 2 to 1 that's going to be a year old here pretty soon. So we have a pretty busy household. Prior to serving on the Wichita City Council, I served on the Goddard School Board. I worked at Cessna Aircraft for 17 years. While I was working there, I got my bachelor's and master's degrees at night. I went into advanced business studies at Ohio State University through their growth leadership program there. And I was also a 6 Sigma certified black belt at Textron, which what that is, it was a 2-year commitment to basically looking at statistical analysis for problem solving and driving metrics. I work in real estate now. I've been a real estate broker for the last 12 years and own several residential investment properties here in town. So I've been on the city council for almost 2 years now. I've learned a lot of things. One of the first things I learned that the only thing part-time about serving on the city council is the pay. It is a full-time job. It is 50, 60 hours a week. It is, I remember I was going 5 and 6 months, and you were lucky to spend one evening at home with your family. It's out visiting with the neighborhood groups, with constituent issues, with businesses. It's a very big job, but it holds a lot of responsibility. I've tried to incorporate some of the business things that worked in the corporate world for me into City Hall, as far as strategic planning, as far as finding metrics derived from our decisions. I think that's very important. I think having a vision on priorities, I think that is something I've really pushed for, as well as accountability. Sitting on the city council, we have each of us, including the mayor, have a 1 in 7 vote. So you obviously have to build a consensus with the next 4 people. But I want to see our council be more consensus or more data-driven and more matrix-driven in the future. As far as my Republican values, I've been a strong Second Amendment proponent. We've had a couple major issues that I've pushed hard for our Second Amendment rights. And I believe in just the philosophy of less government, and any spending we do, I want to continue to see it on core services, on street, police, and fire, and keep it as limited as possible. So again, if you ever want to reach out to me, reach out to my website or give me a call. My number is easily found on the internet, or if you want to write it down, it's 640-0656. So thanks again for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Next is Gary Bond, running in District 5.
Hello, my name is Gary Bond, and I am in District 5, running for District 5, Wichita City Council. For those of you that don't know, that's north of Maple and west of 235. I've been married to Kathy, my wife, for 23 years, and I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. And my son Christopher, my youngest, is a senior at Northwest High School. My son Michael is a sophomore at WSU, and he's studying engineering. My daughter went to WSU also, and she has a degree in education, and so she's a teacher now. Her husband went to WSU, and he has a master's degree in accounting. And last of all, my wife is also attending WSU, and she is studying communications. So you can see that education is very important in our family, and we're all shoppers. I wanted to talk about, that brings me to the why. Somebody said, why do you want to run for the Wichita City Council? There's 2 reasons that I want to do that. One is what I just mentioned, that my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren, I want Wichita to be the kind of place where they can stay here and work and live and not have to move away to have some place to do that. They want them to be around us. The second part of that is I think that we need conservative leadership on local government. We need to have people that are moral and people that have values and common sense. I have lived with the laws for many years, and so I know how the laws affect our different families. There's 3 areas that I'd like to concentrate on. One would be jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. We've lost 25,000 jobs in the last 5 to 6 years here in the Wichita area. And just last week, We lost 620 at Learjet. So we need to concentrate, and I think that needs to be the number one issue that on the city council. I think that we need to empower businesses and also promote our businesses here in Wichita, all of them equally. We need to give them things like, we need to have regulations that they can live by and grow by, and not ones that will hold them back, and we need to support them. We need to have quality of life and low cost of living so that the businesses that are here want to stay here and grow here, and the businesses that aren't here want to come and live because of those reasons. And we need to diversify our economy, and we also need to help our entrepreneurs. The second area is trust. We had 1% sales tax election here in November, and that failed. And I believe that a lot of the reason that failed was a trust issue between the public and City Hall. I think we need to rebuild that trust. And I think that we need to be efficient, effective, we need to be accountable, and we need to have transparency so that people can see where we're spending their money, so that we can really rebuild that trust with the public. We need to also take care of the assets that we have here in Wichita. I know we build new things, and new things are nice, but taking care of the things that we already have here, I think is very important. One of the examples I use is at Watson Park, where the train has been sitting there for many years, not being repaired. That's an asset of Wichita that's not being taken care of, and that goes to the quality of life. In Edgemore Park, there's a swimming pool that's been empty for many years. It's not been repaired or replaced in a long time. I think that people see these kind of things. They see that the streets need to be repaired, and they see that they hear about the water and the pipes that need to be replaced. And they wonder, what is City Council doing with my money down there? Are they spending it in the right places? So I think that's something I need to talk about. So the trust issue needs to be, helped. I would like to be involved in picking the new police chief. The new police chief we need. We need a police chief that's going to bring the community together. We need a police chief that's going to stand up and tell the bad guys, if you do something wrong, you're going to, pay for that. But also we need a police chief that'll stand up and say to the law-abiding citizens, the good guys, the ones, he needs to say to them that, you can trust the police. We're here to serve and take, and help you, not be something that there's a lack of trust. So we need a police chief like that. Finally, I have a vision for, as I am passionate about public service, and I'm thinking about District 5, I think we need a police substation there. District 5 is actually larger than the city of Hutchinson. It's larger than the city of Salina. So we need to have a police substation there. And finally, this is a new day. We're going to elect a new mayor and 3 new council people. So this is a new beginning, and I think when you get ready to go vote, I'd like you to remember Bond, Gary Bond.
Thank you. We'll pass that down to Bryan Frye. Bryan is a candidate in District 5.
Thank you, Todd. And you'll forgive me, I'm a television marketing guy, so I'm used to speaking in 30-second promotional announcements. I have 5 minutes. I don't know how I'm going to fill all that time, but I'll stretch. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a wonderful day to be in Wichita, and I thank you for inviting me to participate in this forum. My name is Bryan Frye, and I'm a lifelong Wichitan, product of Wichita Public Schools and Wichita State University with a BA in marketing. I've been married to my wife Sheila for 25 years, and we have 2 children in the May School District. Daughter Reagan, that's a popular name here, right? And she's 12, and my son is Carson, he's 9. So why am I running for City Council District 5? That's a good question, and you're going to hear a lot of common themes tonight. But first off, I'm a big believer in serving your community beyond your job. Throughout my career, I've served on many boards and associations. Currently on Wichita Board of Park Commissioners for the last 7.5 years. I've been the president for the last 5. I'm also a District 5 Advisory Board. hearing ideas and concerns for District 5 residents. I'm on the Community Plan Investment Committee for the city and county, visioning what the next 20 years is going to look like and the challenges and opportunities that we have. I'm also a board member at Botanica, Cowtown, and Music Theater of Wichita. So when I say I believe in serving the community, I back it up. I always have. For the last 25 years, I've worked in local media. Not in front of the camera, behind the camera. Last 12 years, I've worked as Director of Marketing at Cakeland, competitor to Mr. Johnson over there. My career has given me some great opportunities, from the experiences I've had, to the people I've met, to the coworkers and people that have mentored me along the way. And it's given me great insight. And I've worked with two legends in broadcasting, Al Buck and Larry Hatterberg. And both of those men taught me that life, living, and business go hand in hand. You serve your community, you keep learning, and you have empathy and compassion for all. And that's why I do what I do. When I was appointed to the park board nearly 8 years ago, I had an opportunity to really start to see what was going on and the opportunities and the limitations that we have as a city. And I'm sure we can all agree that this is a great place to live. That's why we live here. And I'm doing this because I want it to continue to be a great place, not only for my children, but for generations to come. As a West Side resident for the last 12 years, we've seen some amazing growth and development, from New Market Square, Maze Road, a new fire station, bridge over the floodway. But all the projections show that District 5 in Northwest Wichita is going to continue to grow. And we have to be ready, proactive, and responsible so we can handle the increase in demand, services, and traffic. That's being proactive. That's why I'm here today. And I'm going to cut my time short because I know there's a lot of questions. And I'm sure we'll be able to follow up with some more questions. Thank you.
Finally, in District 4, Josh Shorter.
Hi, like he said, my name's Josh Shorter. My wife Karen is in the back with our baby, Reagan. She's almost 10 months old and we're having a second one in May. The reason that I'm running is, for years, Wichita City Council has operated with a lower level of accountability and openness than the people of Wichita deserve. And as I've gone door to door and people have asked me to consider running, the idea that I'm getting is that people want fresh ideas and a new look at the tired policies that City Council has been trying to operate under for a while. As Gary alluded to, we're still losing jobs, even with the push from City Council to increase TIF districts and to try to lure those businesses here. It's obviously not working. And so, as I took a look at this, we realized there were 3 issues that need to be addressed at City Hall with a new and fresh set of eyes. One of those is openness and accountability. And I think that some of the things that we've seen with City, with the Police Chief Williams, for example, we're not getting openness, and we're not getting the answers from City Hall that we really deserve. We are the citizens, and they work for us, and not the other way around. We need to have a renewed approach at smart spending. We're having transit issues and we're having infrastructure issues that in November were critical to the future of Wichita. We needed to pass the sales tax that was thrown together, and then on Tuesday we decided we have enough money to spend millions of dollars on a new library. City Hall hasn't given us an answer as to how we need to address the critical water issue, the critical infrastructure issues that they were telling us we needed to pay for 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Where's another plan? We need a fresh set of eyes. We need new approach to these issues. And finally, we need a new approach to pro-job growth. Obviously, the methods and the initiatives that we've taken aren't working the way that we expected. City Hall keeps telling us that TIFs and forgivable loans and incentives to businesses to bring them here are going to grow jobs. I think we can all see that that just hasn't happened. We're still losing jobs. Kansas is reporting job growths. The United States, for heaven's sakes, is reporting job growths, but we can't grow jobs here in Wichita. I'm in manufacturing. I've been in manufacturing my whole life. My dad owns a manufacturing company. I grew up at 9 years old. I was cutting gear teeth for 737s. We've seen what it takes to create jobs. We know what it takes, and it takes the government on all levels getting out of the way, letting us innovate, and creating a culture that people want to come to and want to work and want to live in, want to raise their children in. That's what City Council needs to be focusing on. Not forgivable loans and not secret contracts with our buddies and those kind of issues that we have seen. When the city comes and tells you they want to, for example, with the sales tax, we want to tax you more. What the city's telling you is, we don't really want your business here because we want to raise your taxes. We want to make it less likely for your labor force to come here. And I think that's an issue. We have an opportunity with a new mayor and a couple of council seats open to really bring some change to City Hall, to look at the policies and the practices that we've been using for years. And that's why I'm here. I appreciate y'all for coming, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
I want you, just figure out who is going to ask, and then be sure and speak up loud so the room can hear you. And so who has a question? Raise your hand.
Yeah, Carl. Well, I knew Carl logged on, but not one again. We'll start
All right.
with Carl and go.
You had a reference to TIFs and forgivable loans. I'm curious, if you think that TIFs and forgivable loans work, why do you think they work? And if you don't think they work, why do you think they don't work? And I'd be interested in every one of the four panelists' comments on that, please.
Thank you for asking the question, Carl. Personally, I think that if you look on a very micro level in the area defined, they probably work in terms of the job growth in that specific area for that specific amount of time. However, as a city as a whole, it damages our reputation and it damages our job growth environment. And you can see that through the statistics of losing jobs, of businesses leaving after TIFs are done, of these kinds of issues that are not pro-job growth. Really, the city needs to get out of the way. The city needs to create an environment that's friendly to all businesses and not pick and choose these winners when it comes to who gets city funds and who doesn't get city funds. As far as a forgivable loan goes, I just bought our house. I would love a forgivable loan. I don't know why the city thinks it can hand out my money and your money and then forgive that. That's just my opinion. I think that the statistics show that those issues are not helpful to the city as a whole.
Bryan Frye.
I'm a free market guy. I believe there should be an even playing field for everyone doing business in the city. And to choose winners or losers, that's not the American way. You know, we all want to be able to stand on our own and build our businesses and be able to apply what we learned and grow our business. And that's the way it should be done. The city shouldn't be picking winners or losers. That being said, there are cities and communities that are competing against us that are picking winners and losers. Sometimes our very own companies that are here. And so we have to look at every opportunity, every tool that's available to us. And we also have to make sure that we're holding the leaders accountable when they make those deals. Make sure that we're doing the due diligence right. We're asking all the questions. We're making sure that all the check marks and all the boxes have all the proper information. And then we're not approving deals that don't have everything that we need to have on that return on investment. And then when it does happen, we need to make sure that we follow it up and their clawbacks and everything that we have accountable and available to us, we're enforcing. That goes back to the openness and the transparency. So free market, let companies do what they need to do, grow our local businesses first, because that's where we're going to experience the most growth from. Those are the companies that we need to keep here, because they're already invested in the community. They're here. They want to stay here. They don't want to move their families. Make it exciting, enticing, and attractive to stay here.
Gary Bond.
Well, it's hard to follow because a lot of what they said I agree with. And especially when Josh said, how is that working for you lately? You know, you can look at the history and things are just not, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been losing jobs and the TIFs have been we're giving out TIFs and we're doing the forgivable loans, which sounds like you know, that sounds kind of silly. A forgivable loan. It's not a loan. It's a gift. And I don't think we need to do that. And I agree with Brian about being free market. And that we don't, if a company has a project, a developer or a project of some kind of business, if they can get loans without a TIF, that's what they should do. I think that they're thinking that this is just an automatic thing. They just go down to the city and we're going to get a TIF. I think this is a new day and I think this has got to stop.
Jeff Blubaugh.
I believe in the equal playing field as well. And, you know, sitting on the council the last 2 years, the things that I've seen brought to us from GWDC and some of the other organizations I've been pretty much underwhelmed with is what they're presenting. Whenever it comes to forgivable loans, I'm not in favor of forgivable loans, but I'm also not in favor of Texas, North Carolina, anybody else coming and picking our aviation business apart. And I don't know what the answer to that is. You know, I don't know that we can continue to pay companies to stay here, but at the end result, I don't want to see those companies get picked apart and leave Wichita either.
All right, we'll go to our next question. We'll start with Jeff. So, Don, you got a question?
Yes, I do. Gary had mentioned about wanting to be involved in the search for a new police chief. He mentioned about going after the bad guys. In light of the fact there's legitimate questions, training issues, let's be kind, training issues about the use of excessive force, what kind of questions would you be looking for? Qualifications.
Some of the qualifications I'd be looking for is obviously a leader that is very transparent with the public. That's been one of the #1 issues. And I don't know if part of that's the police chief or part of it's because we don't have a strategic communication person at City Hall or someone that I believe can deliver the message and make sure that transparency exists. You know, we've heard lots of concerns over the last several years as far as the police shootings and what's went on in the city of Wichita. So I think, you know, you need to have that person that's got the skill sets that can work with the public as well as be a good leader within the police staff as well.
Gary Bond.
Yes, I agree with what Jeff said about needing to have a leader. I think that we have a police chief that's going to want to, and when we look for the things in a police chief, that's what we're going to look for. Somebody that can bring the community together and somebody that can stand up to the bad guys, but also tell us that the police needs to be trusted. There are people in the city that think 15 to 20% of the cops are bad. That is not a good thing for the public to be thinking. I think that the public needs to know that the police are there to protect and serve. But you're going to have to find a police chief that's going to have those kind of qualities. But also, the police chief's boss is the city manager. The city manager has got to have the same attitude. This has got to be a culture change here so that we can have, so the public's going to trust the police. We've got to have that to have a good community.
Bryan Frye.
Certainly having a safe and secure community is a top priority. That's what people expect out of the local government. Police, fire, water, roads, that's the basic responsibility of the city government. So the citizens need to have confidence and faith that the police department is going to be there for them when they need it the most. Most of us don't even think about police until we need them. And you need to be able to say that I have confidence contacting them. And it goes two ways also. You know, we need to make sure that we're eliminating all the bias we can within our local law enforcement officers and making sure we're weeding out the bad cops, we're hiring the good ones. And at the same time, we need to educate the public to make sure they know, don't resist arrest. It's pretty silly, it's pretty simple. You know, don't break the laws, do what the police officers tell you. You know, that helps with trust as well. So it's a top priority. It's currently a hire by the city manager. I'd like to see a little bit more authority from the mayor and the council on hiring some of those top-level department managers. Currently, they have no say in that. That'd be something nice to see changed. Currently, with it just being a city manager position, he has, or she, has the ability to hire and fire. And that might need to change.
Josh Shorter.
I also think that in light of the current events that we've had with police interactions that have had the mainstream media's attention, we do have a little bit of a problem from the population looking at the police department in general. However, the police department has hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions with citizens every day that are positive. And we really need to remind people that, one, not every officer involved shooting is wrong. Some of them are justified. And two, I think that a big issue that we've seen in recent months, not only in Wichita but across the country, is openness. Willing to answer to what happened, provide the timeline of events. And I think that in the city of Wichita, a lot of the openness needs to come from the top down. City council needs to be more open, needs to be more accountable. And that flows down through all levels of city government, of all the departments. And I think that getting the police out and doing some of the positive things that our police officers have done in our district, we have the cleanups, we have the helping out with handing out gifts at Christmas time. I think those things are all positive, getting even more buy-in from there, and then making sure that the police department has the resources it needs for training and for proper communication to the citizens is critical, in my opinion.
Jennifer, you got another question?
Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, I would like to hear you guys' plans for water, if you think we need to do anything about water.
Well, as the city council told us in November, this is a critical issue, but then maybe it's not so critical. Maybe we have a decade or two to think about it. So I think, again, one of the things coming from city council needs to be an open communication about what does the city need, what are our forecasted needs, how long is our water going to last, what can we do to reuse the water, recycle water, what can we do to be more responsible with our watering. I think that implementing changes even as simple as, I don't know if it infuriates anyone else to be driving down the street in the rain and the center median owned by the city is being watered. That just kills me. I think that we do have a water issue that we need to be discussing, but we don't need to rush into it either. We need to have a principled look at what we need, what our options are for fulfilling the needs, and getting those put in place in an efficient and effective manner when it comes to water, and a whole host of other issues as well.
Bryan Frye.
All right, Todd, this is not a promotional announcement, but on the way over here tonight, I got a text alert that there's a major leak at one of the city's water pipes coming from the Epwis and Cheney Lakes that feeds into the water filtration. Jeff probably knows about this. This is part of the problem. It's just not the water supply, it's the water infrastructure that carries and protects all that water that's coming from Cheney and the Epwis beds. For far too long, we've ignored or not been able to pay for the infrastructure needs. Certainly during the economy, you have to make your choices and pick and choose the most immediate ones. And the rains that we had recently maybe bought us some more time, but it's just not the water supply, it's how much are we wasting and losing with the infrastructure problems we have now with the pipes and the lifts and the maintenance. So it's a bigger picture than just the water supply. The sales tax might have helped with part of it, but I think we got to look at all of the pieces, and we got to do it fast, because we don't want to be in a situation like California, like Arizona, where they're starving for water.
Gary Bond.
Well, I agree with Josh about being a little more careful about what water we're spending and what we're using it for. But also, I think that the infrastructure issue has been put off for far too long, and that's part of the idea of let's build new things but not take care of the infrastructure and the assets that the city has. We've been putting it off for far too long, and that's what we need to do, is fix the infrastructure that brings the water to us. Now, studying the water, I think it needs to be a little bit longer, and I think it needs to be a little more open. There's a lot of different ideas on what to do with the water, and I think we did jump a little bit quick when we tried to vote on in November. I thought it was a little bit too quick, and they probably should have separated those things. The water could have been approved if it was by itself, but it was not. It was grouped together, and I don't think there was enough information about the different ways that we could have took care of the water.
Jeff Blubaugh.
Timing for your questions, something else, because, I'm not telling anything that hadn't been released to the public, but right now, we're looking at a 66-inch main that's busted, and there's an opportunity for 425,000 people not to have water tomorrow. So that, to me, speaks volumes as to how we've neglected to put the money back into our infrastructure. And it's not even talking about the aging sewer system and the water mains throughout the city. We're only talking about the intake and the opportunities for future water out there. We have to get back to core services of this city. And I look at it just like my investment properties. Whenever I have a property, well, some of them I want to paint, I want to put a new roof on, but, I need to replace those galvanized pipes. I need to replace those wooden shingles. Otherwise, you're letting your investment just erode away. And I feel like that's what we're doing with our infrastructure, and we need to put a focus back on that.
Who's next?
Cricket.
Well, with that said and whatnot, a week ago Tuesday, the city council identified $8 million extra that they're going to get for that they're going to save on the closing of the dump. Anyhow, but instead of using that money to fix the water line, which would have been 1/8 of the money it took to fix the water lines we're talking about being broken, they decided to build a new library and whatnot. Can we be assured from you candidates that there will be a reallocation of assets outside of the downtown development and out to the rest of the city from here on out?
Jeff.
Craig, I think you know my feelings on the downtown library, but I did vote against it, and it's not that I'm anti-library, it's the fact that we went out to the public last fall and we told them these are the 4 compelling needs that we need for the city. And then all of a sudden, the second week of the year, we roll in a $30 million project that wasn't on that compelling list of needs. So we definitely, my plan that I'm pushing for is the strategic planning where right off the beginning of the year, every year, we look at the goals, get a consensus of where we need to be spending the money instead of having things come up like this just off the radar, and then we have accountability to staff as to how we proceed forward with that.
Gary Bond.
Yes, I agree with Jeff about the we had a lot of surveys throughout the city that recognized the 4 areas that everybody thought was the most important, and here comes the library. And I'm not against the library either. And I think that, I have children that like libraries, and Michael was at the library tonight. So, the library is not the problem that we see. We're talking about infrastructure here. We're talking about quality of life. Quality of life is the library also. We have a library for now. We have libraries around the city, but we have a water main break right now that may be, 420,000 people without water. That's the kind of thing that we should have looked at years ago, and we need to be concerned about is the infrastructure of the city.
Yeah, I think Jeff alluded to this earlier. Think of it as your house. It comes down to wants versus needs. And this city has a lot of wants, but I think it has more needs right now. For far too long, we've not paid attention to the infrastructure stuff. I think we can all with new businesses and being a resource, that can be a need as well. But right now, it's probably not the most dominant need we have. The City Council puts together a CIP plan. It's a 10-year plan for all of our capital needs. The current one was written in 2008 and adopted in 2010. That's a long time, and a lot of needs have come up since then. And I know that we just had an election where we had some of those things, but since then, we've got the opportunity to really drive the dialogue of what our needs are. And is it a library? Is it a Century 2? I think we know what the needs really are, though. It's those infrastructure needs that we've ignored for too long. And we can address the wants later.
Josh Shorter.
I live in the 4th District, I work in the 4th District, I rarely on a day-to-day basis even leave the 4th District, and I see infrastructure and roads deteriorating and crumbling, and they've been forgotten about, they've been pushed to the side for far too long. To be entirely honest with you, and it might be an unpopular opinion, I think it's foolish that we even talked about a library during a city council meeting when we're having all of these other issues that seriously need to be addressed. Core quality of life issues, services that the city should be offering you are roads, a way to get where you're going and to get what you need, infrastructure. All of those issues are so much more important than a new library whenever we have plenty of accessible libraries around the city. I'm sorry, I do not think that it's really that critical whenever we're having these other issues that the city council tried to bunch together, throw at you, and tell you to approve in November. And now they've forgotten about them. They're not fighting for them. They haven't presented you with a new plan. We have a water problem. We do have a road problem. Let's address these issues instead of addressing the new library.
There have been a couple of cases I can recall recently where the city has taken one direction and it's come up to a vote and the voters have resoundingly rejected the city direction, and that was the hotel downtown, the Ambassador Hotel, and the sales tax. I'd like each one of them to comment on that disconnect between the city council and the public.
Absolutely. Campaign point number 1. The city council has lost track, has lost focus, and has really lost touch with the citizens. That's really what it comes down to. When we have city council out there voting to put a sales tax issue on the ballot that you as citizens overwhelmingly, without question, turn down, and they act surprised that that's what happened, they lost touch. They really have lost touch. With the Ambassador Hotel, they tried to push that through. Luckily, in the 4th District, we had Michael O'Donnell at the time who fought it, who got it to a city vote, and the citizens told you, you're not listening to us. But they didn't listen to us then. They didn't listen to us in November. When are they going to start listening and saying, you know, enough taxes. We've been taxed enough. Learn how to spend the money you have on the critical issues that the city's facing, not on your pet projects, not on your libraries, for example. A common theme coming up. But that's one of the problems with city council. They've lost touch. They've lost an openness. They don't have dialogue with the city that they really need to be having. And I think that was evident in November whenever we told them no more taxes. I think it was pretty clear. And if they didn't get it then, I don't know if the current group ever will.
Bryan Frye.
You speak of the current group. We're going to have an opportunity in April to elect a new mayor and one city council person for District 5 and possibly 2 more in District 2 and District 4. Maybe new there. It begins with transparency and open levels of communication throughout the entire City Hall and at the county. We have to have good public policy. You have to engage more opportunities to get together with people, to hold the leaders accountable, making sure that all the deals and all the things are getting asked and the questions, and have the opportunity to have that discourse and that conversation. Because if you're not, that's how you're misreading the tea leaves. And that's how you're not paying attention to what are the priorities. City Hall can't be a black tower with 13 floors of people that never get out of it. There needs to be more opportunities to get out and visit with people, have more open houses, more ideas, more workshops, more opportunities for people to get together with their elected officials and staff. It's just not the elected officials, it's staff. Staff needs to hear it as well.
Well, I think that the taxes do not need to be raised. We need to live within our means. We need to take what the money we have now and reallocate that money to where we can take care of these infrastructure things. And talking to the people and getting out is a very important thing. The disconnect is between the city and the public. And the only way we're going to find that out is for people like us to get out there and talk to the public and find out where they're coming from, what they need, what they don't need, what they want. But I think that they don't want higher taxes.
As far as the sales tax, it wasn't just one person that decided it. We spent hours and hours trying to come up with a consensus. We didn't vote to approve a 1 cent tax. We voted to approve a ballot for the voters to decide. And the voters had that opportunity, and they voted it down. The city council didn't promote it. They didn't advocate for it. We put it out there that was the best consensus that the existing city council came up with, and it was up for the voters to decide that. Now, as far as my tenure on there, the major thing I've pushed for is a city manager evaluation. We have not done one in the 5 years he's there. We're currently going through one now, and that has been one of my big pushes as far as strategic planning and the follow-up and the checks and balance system with the city manager evaluation. And I think the checks and balance system that we have there is the kind of positive change that we need to lead at City Hall.
Thank you.
Next question, right back here. Carissa Jarbo-Gall, and I will admit, I don't live in your district, but I'm a firm believer that once you are elected to the city council, then you are my representative because your vote impacts me. But in our neighborhood association, neighborhood cleanups are very important, and there's been a lot of unhappiness, I would say, with the funding that was cut on the neighborhood cleanups. We used to not have to pay anything, and now if we want to have one, we have to pay for it or partially pay for it, but then some neighborhoods can still get it for free. So do you see neighborhood cleanups as important, and do you see restoration to that funding as something that you would consider?
Jeff Blubaugh.
I feel like neighborhood cleanups are very important, and I've pushed hard for them in my district. A lot of the funding that's been cut were federal funds that have been cut that we're no longer getting, and it comes down to the council has to agree to where we want to put our money. We've talked about the infrastructure issues, the water, but yet we all say we don't want to raise taxes, and I'm definitely not in favor of raising taxes either. But we have to be realistic, and we'll just find the money within the budget. These are real numbers at some point, and you've got to identify where those at. Specifically talking about neighborhood cleanups, I feel, I'll use my analogy earlier of my properties. It's like painting a house. I think you get a lot of value for the money from neighborhood cleanups because you're sending a message to everyone around that, hey, we're not continuing to let this neighborhood deteriorate. So I do feel like they're very important and worth funding.
I agree that neighborhood cleanups are very important, and there probably needs to be some funding. I think that the neighborhood associations and churches, they need to take some responsibility and have some of that funding come from that area, because that's the area that needs the cleanup. So I think there's some responsibility that needs to be done there. Federal money, I don't agree with federal money cleaning up our neighborhood. I think we need to be more responsible for where we live at and clean up our own neighborhoods. And that's just my opinion on that.
One thing you're going to learn about me, I hate littering. I call them on it. So to me, this is a personal responsibility thing. You know, I was a president of my neighborhood association, my HOA, for 4 years, and treasurer for 2 years. You know, we did neighborhood cleanups, and it wasn't big. You know, getting volunteers mobilized, get them out there, pick stuff up, clean it, throw it away. It's not that hard to do, and it didn't require a lot of expense. It's a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors. So more cleanups. I don't think it requires a ton of funding, but if there are neighborhoods that can't afford it, we should figure out a way to help them. Maybe it's sponsorships or community partnerships with local businesses, because they have a vested interest in making the neighborhood stay nice as well. Property values not only for the homes, but for the businesses. So this cuts close to home to me. It's something I teach my children all the time about littering and personal responsibility. I think we've been a little lax as a society on that, and I think we need to take more responsibility, and we can do that and do it in a cooperative way, in a way that builds relationships with our neighbors and our partners, and everyone wins.
Josh Shore?
I think that we've seen a lot of benefit between city employees and the 4th district. We've seen police officers helping with these cleanup issues. We've seen the city councilman down there himself cleaning up these neighborhoods, and I think that's been a great way for the public to have a positive interaction with city employees. I do think that they're vitally important to neighborhoods to get cleaned up, to get out there, to get working on your neighborhood, to take some pride and some ownership in the area in which you're living. And I think that those areas that have neighborhood cleanups are probably closer together. They get out there with people of like mind, and they move towards a common goal. We all know that helps us develop a kinship with the people that we're living with. And so I think those are all very important aspects of getting out there, getting involved, and getting those positive interactions between everybody. And you know, we live in kind of a negative world now, and I think that anytime we can create positive interactions, it's going to be beneficial to everybody involved.
All right, one last question.
Right here.
I have a question
We'll come out. We'll
about
take
transparency and the water. Recently, the city of Wichita borrowed millions of dollars and put the city in debt. Jeff would probably know the figures more on this. How much did they borrow? How much is Wichita in debt? And that was right after they were turned down on the vote. And then the transparency, did somebody have a budget that says how much of this is going to be spent where? Or did they just pick a number out of the air and say, oh, let's have this much in debt?
Yeah, what's the question?
For us,
Well, you can comment on that. The numbers, Jeff probably knows better. How much is borrowed?
Maybe that's it. Is that a question for this group or a conversation for after?
So why don't we have a conversation after? That's probably more than what we got time. But we'll try to squeeze one more in. John, do you have a question?
Yes.
Good question.
But come on up and talk to the candidates after, for sure.
University professor Dr. Art Hall came to Pachyderm Club. In fact, he was at Kansas Policy Institute. They put on a wonderful program on market-based solutions to water. Question, have you seen the program? And did you endorse it? And are you planning on coming to Pachyderm tomorrow to learn more about it?
I haven't seen the program, but I am familiar with market-based solutions, and I think that that's where all the solutions to the problems that we're facing come from, the market. We can see when we get out of the way and let the market take care of businesses, it does a great job. And I think the same thing can be applied to any of our city services as well. And I do plan on seeing you for lunch tomorrow.
It is $15. No.
Unless you join Packer.
I did see the presentation, and I thought it was amazing and very enlightening. I think the point I'd like to make in market-driven solutions right here in Wichita. And we should utilize their opportunity and their wisdom more, just like Omaha has done with Buffett. You know, being able to draw upon that education and those ideas, why aren't we taking better advantage of that? I thought the ideas that Dr. Hall had in that were fantastic. And it's not going to be one solution out of this. There's got to be multiple layers to ensure that we have a water supply for generations. This isn't a water supply until the next rainstorm. This is a water supply that we need for decades. And it's got to be more than one solution. It can't just be piping in from El Dorado. It can't be just fixing the ASR. It's a combination of things. It's the water banks, like Dr. Hall talked in his presentation. It's all of those things, fixing the infrastructure so we're not losing as much water as we're trying to store. Maybe it's recycling gray water. Maybe it's taking the water that we're dumping in the Arkansas now and going downstream instead of reusing it. All of these are ideas that we need to be wrapping our heads around and utilizing the leaders and the smart people that we have in this community to figure out more solutions.
Gary Bond.
Well, I agree, and I usually come in after all the guys have talked, but I do agree with the market-based solutions, and I think that's a way to handle a lot of our problems. And I think that when it comes to the water problem, it's going to be a comprehensive. It's not just one $250 million thrown into one thing. We're going to have to look at the whole picture.
I think whenever we look at our infrastructure and what we have today, I would like to have a discussion about, gathering a regional water plan, 7 or 8 county area, not just a Wichita water. If we're looking at future water needs and we're looking out there 50 years, because really 20 years comes by pretty fast, we need to look at like a 50-year plan and try to have like a water cooperative where we have 7 or 8 counties all working together and work with the state as well to where we come up with a positive plan that'll serve everybody and not just narrowly focused on the city of Wichita water.
All right. So appreciate everybody hanging with us, and I want to give everyone an opportunity for a closing statement. So we'll start with Jeff Blubaugh.